Alright, today is May 31st, 2012. The time is 1:40. We are gathered here in the Sheriff's Office suites in the conference room for the purpose of a pre-disciplinary hearing in reference to Correctional Officer Feemster. Present is Officer Feemster, Investigator Norton, Sergeant Harrison, and myself. For the record, I'll go around the table, starting with Officer Feemster. If you would, just please state your full name and employee number.
Herbert Brian Feemster, 19253.
Alvin Spencer Norton, 22222.
Dwayne Harrison, employee number 1606.
I'm Joseph Sean Sutherland, 8471. I'm Assistant Chief Deputy. I'll be acting as the hearing officer in this case today. Just a few items of housekeeping first. The way the hearing will run, Officer Feemster, is I'll allow the investigators to present the case as it was investigated and as it was presented to the sheriff. After they're done, I'll allow you to give any testimony, any evidence on your behalf. Upon the conclusion of all the evidence, I'll recess for a time, review everything, and come back with a disciplinary finding. You did receive notice of this hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall when you received that notice?
No, sir.
Okay. But at least 24 hours prior to the day's
Yes.
hearing. I'll just read the letter that I sent out that was dated May 16th. It is addressed to you. It is from me. The reference is this hearing, and it reads, "A hearing will be convened in my office on Thursday, May 31st, 2012 at 13:30 hours for the purpose of reviewing an investigation concerning allegations of misconduct and or violations of rules, regulation, policy, procedure, ordinance, or law. Prior to this hearing, please make an appointment with me to review the case to be presented. Your attendance is compulsory and mandatory. Please advise your supervisors so they may make any necessary adjustments and duty assignments during your attendance in this hearing. It has been revealed to your immediate supervisors that you may have violated the following Clayton County Sheriff's Office rules and regulations and or Clayton County Civil Service rules. 7.02 Truthfulness, 7.06 Conduct Unbecoming an Officer, and 5.05 Use of Force Reporting. Following is your conduct, action, or failure to act with the above listed rules, and listed below that is multiple violations of the quoted rules as documented in SIA's case file 2012 IA-027. So we will just get to that as the investigators present the case. As we discussed, waiving this hearing was not really an option, so we will proceed forward with the hearing. If you would, just sign right there that we are proceeding, initial by that we are proceeding forward with the hearing, and then sign over there by employee.
Right here, the top one, right?
No. I do not wish away my rights and request the hearing.
Okay.
Just real quick, I'll give a brief oath. If everyone would raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Officer Feemster?
Yes.
Investigator Norton?
I do.
Sergeant Harrison?
I do.
All right, thank you. All right, if you will, sir, just go ahead and present the case.
On April 16, 2012, inmate Michael Jamal Ford, LE number 0970583, advised Lieutenant W. Smith several correctional officers used excessive force on him on April 13, 2012. Lieutenant Boher completed an investigation into the incident. The investigation was reassigned to Special Investigations Section for review. On April 13, 2012, Correctional Officer St. Louis, Correctional Officer Feemster attempted to lock down inmate Michael Ford for failure to comply with officer's orders. Inmate Ford refused to lock down. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Correctional Officer Feemster escorted inmate Ford to the ground. Correctional Officer Feemster administered one knee strike to inmate Ford's right shoulder. Correctional Officer St. Louis administered several knee strikes and elbow strikes to the back and neck area of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Feemster notified other officers via the radio he needed assistance with a non-compliant inmate. Correctional Officer Wyatt arrived and inmate Ford was handcuffed. Correctional Officer Feemster escorted inmate Ford from the cell to the catwalk. Correctional Officer St. Louis took control of inmate Ford and forced him to the ground. Go to page 2. Clayton County Sheriffs Office Use of Force Report. Sergeant A. Love completed a use of force report on April 14, 2012, detailing the events which occurred between inmate Ford and Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster. Sergeant Love documented inmate Ford was non-compliant, banging on windows, and wearing his uniform improperly. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster made contact with inmate Ford, at which time inmate Ford took a combative stance towards the officers. Correctional Officers St. Louis and Feemster used a leg sweep and took inmate Ford to the ground. Inmate Ford continued to resist. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster. Correctional Officer St. Louis administered several knee and elbow strikes to the back and shoulder area of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Wyatt arrived and assisted with securing inmate Ford with handcuffs. Inmate Ford sustained a minor laceration to his nose. The use of force stated incident occurred April 14, 2012. However, this incident occurred on April 13, 2012. A copy of the use of force is attached to this case file for review. Jail miscellaneous incident report submitted by Correctional Officer Feemster. Correctional Officer Feemster completed a jail miscellaneous report on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis informed him inmate Ford was non-compliant and refused to go into his cell. Correctional Officer St. Louis informed Correctional Officer Feemster he was escorting inmate Ford to disciplinary segregation. Correctional Officer St. Louis instructed inmate Ford to place his hand behind his back, and inmate Ford refused. Correctional Officer St. Louis attempted to secure inmate Ford's left arm, but inmate Ford pulled away in an aggressive manner. Inmate Ford was taken to the ground. Correctional Officer Feemster notified Central Control of the incident. Correctional Officer St. Louis delivered several knee strikes and closed hand strikes to inmate Ford's upper body while giving verbal commands to place his hand behind his back. Correctional Officer Feemster delivered one knee strike to inmate Ford's right shoulder. Correctional Officer Feemster secured inmate Ford's right arm. Officer Wyatt arrived and placed inmate Ford's right arm into handcuffs. Correctional Officer Feemster secured inmate Ford's left arm. Correctional Officer Feemster assisted inmate Ford to his feet and escorted him to the catwalk area. A copy of this incident report is attached to the case file for review. Page 6, interviews. Interview with Correctional Officer Feemster. On April 25, 2012, I conducted an interview with Correctional Officer Feemster. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis requested his assistance while Correctional Officer St. Louis was in Housing Unit 6. Correctional Officer St. Louis advised Correctional Officer Feemster inmate Ford was being non-compliant, so he was going to escort him to disciplinary segregation. Correctional Officer St. Louis ordered inmate Ford to place his hands behind his back. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis then reached for inmate Ford's arm. Correctional Officer Feemster stated it was his opinion Correctional Officer St. Louis did not give inmate Ford enough time to comply with his order. Inmate Ford then snatched his arm away. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he was able to grab inmate Ford by his leg and take him to the floor inside of the cell. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis then instructed inmate Ford to put his hand behind his back while giving him some licks and some more licks. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he attempted to secure inmate Ford's right arm, but inmate Ford was holding his arm between his body and the floor. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he administered one knee strike to inmate Ford's right shoulder. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he was able to secure inmate Ford's right hand after delivering the knee strike. Correctional Officer Wyatt then arrived and assisted with handcuffing inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis struck inmate Ford in the back of the head with his elbow. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he then assist inmate Ford to his feet and escort inmate Ford out of the cell to the catwalk. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he had 100% control of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis then takes control of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer St. Louis then takes inmate Ford by the handcuffs while lifting his arms up behind his back. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he looks back towards the tower, and as he turns back around, he notices inmate Ford is now on the floor. Correctional Officer Feemster stated Correctional Officer St. Louis lost his temper and control when he took inmate Ford to the floor. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he had interacted with inmate Ford at least twice before Correctional Officer St. Louis came into the section. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he was able to get inmate Ford to comply with his orders without having to use force. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he felt Correctional Officer St. Louis was out of place by approaching inmate Ford due to Correctional Officer St. Louis being assigned to a separate post this date. I asked Correctional Officer Feemster if he completed a miscellaneous report. He stated yes. I asked Correctional Officer Feemster if he documented all the details from this event into his report. He stated no. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he was rushing to get off shift and he had to complete 3 reports before leaving. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he intended on informing someone of the incident. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he approached Sergeant Gardner in the intake and advised her the incident should not have happened. Sergeant Gardner stated the inmate was non-compliant. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he did not go into full details with Sergeant Gardner. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he was questioned by Lieutenant Bohr, and he informed Lieutenant Bohr Correctional Officer St. Louis hit inmate Ford several times. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he documented this in his statement he submitted to Lieutenant Bohr. This interview was recorded and a copy is attached to this case file for review. Conclusion, we'll go to violation number 6. Correctional Officer Feemster assisted Correctional Officer St. Louis with dealing with inmate 4 on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer Feemster submitted a jail miscellaneous incident report which did not contain all the facts pertaining to the incident. Correctional Officer Feemster failed to mention inmate 4 was forced to the ground without provocation by Correctional Officer St. Louis. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer Feemster did violate Clayton County Sheriffs Office Rules and Regulations 05.05, use of force reporting. When it is necessary to use any amount of force on the subject, a written report will be made given all the facts of the incident. This report shall be forwarded through the reporting employee's chain of command. Upon review of these reports, a copy will be forwarded to the Sheriff, Chief Deputy, and Special Investigations Section. Violation 7. Correctional Officer Feemster assisted Correctional Officer St. Louis with dealing with inmate 4 on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer Feemster submitted a jail miscellaneous incident report which did not contain all the facts pertaining to the incident. Correctional Officer Feemster failed to report inmate 4 was forced to the ground without provocation by Correctional Officer St. Louis, a superior officer, without provocation and a superior officer. Therefore, it's sustained. Correctional Officer Feemster did violate Clayton County Sheriff's Office Rule 07.06, prohibition against conduct unbecoming an officer. Conduct unbecoming an officer's conduct which the general public may perceive as negative or unprofessional in nature. Conduct unbecoming an officer is as follows, but not limited to personnel of the Sheriff's Office who are found to have committed any of the following offenses may be subject to disciplinary actions. 5. Neglecting to report any personnel suspected of a violation of any rules, regulations, or orders issued for the guidance of the Sheriff's Office. Violation number 8. Correctional Officer Feemster submitted a written statement to Lieutenant Boyer which stated he was escorting inmate 4 to the catwalk when Correctional Officer St. Louis took control of inmate 4. Correctional Officer Feemster stated he looked toward the tower, and as he turned back toward Correctional Officer St. Louis, he observed inmate 4 on the floor. Correctional Officer Feemster also made this statement during the interview, which was conducted by me. These statements are inconsistent of the video depicted from the housing unit camera. The video obtained from the housing unit shows Correctional Officer Feemster escorting inmate 4 from the section to the catwalk. Correctional Officer St. Louis takes control of inmate 4 and forces him to the ground. Correctional Officer Feemster is looking at Correctional Officer St. Louis and inmate 4 as inmate 4 is forced to the ground. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer Feemster violated Clayton County Rules and Regulations 07.02, truthfulness. The personnel of the Sheriff's Office shall be truthful at all times, both on and off duty, under oath or otherwise. Anyone who does willfully depart from the truth shall be considered unfit for service and subject to disciplinary actions. And that's all the violations.
Do you have a video that you wanted to play?
There is video of there's actually 2 incidents. The first incident was inside the cell. That is not on video, but as they're escorting, as Correctional Officer Feemster is escorting inmate 4 out, it's the second part. It's the second incident. And the rest of the video, they're waiting for Lieutenant and Sergeant to arrive.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Officer Feemster, the floor is yours.
That clearly did not show me looking at that inmate. When he took control, the camera will show that I wasn't even in sight. And even if I was facing the inmate, that don't mean I saw the inmate get taken to the floor. It makes no sense for me to tell you an inmate got bowed in the back of the head, but I wouldn't tell you I saw the officer put him on the floor, but I told you that he put him on the floor. Makes no sense. So therefore, I can't agree with truthfulness. But I gave y'all more than enough information to get Officer St. Louis, which, I mean, I had full intention, and the conduct unbecoming I can understand that too. I didn't report it in time. I had intentions to report, and I attempted to report it. I didn't think she was going to take my side on it, so I waited. I know I'm going to be questioned on the whole incident, so when the time came, I let him have it. When Lieutenant Bo asked me, I know he'd listen, so I let him have the whole incident. Now I'm out of the picture.
He's got control at this point. He takes control of it.
Yes.
You're looking right at him. The camera does pan for approximately 3 seconds. I counted. The inmate is now on the ground.
That don't show me looking at him. I mean, you can see how much I moved my head around the whole time. I can't agree with it.
He's looking up at the camera.
Go back to the point of where St. Louis comes up.
Where he takes control.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the lieutenants is operating the camera. He says he wasn't used to operating it. So.
Is there other testimony you want to give on it?
Other than the truth, I can take the failure to report because I should have reported it all, but at the same time, yeah, I was rushing to get 3 reports. The conduct of McCummon, I attempted to notify somebody. I felt they wasn't going to listen, so it wasn't the right person. So I did wait too long, so I'm going to have to take that one too, but the truthfulness, I can't take that one. Because I done been through this before, and I know better than lie. I mean, I feel if there was a question to me being truthful, y'all would have gave me a polygraph. And I think I gave y'all every piece of information y'all needed.
Anything else to add?
I would just say during my interview with him, he was truthful. He didn't deviate, didn't omit. He gave me all the information I did suggest. And he did come to me and told me he did try to inform Sergeant Gardner, but she said, from what she heard, inmate was non-compliant, so they did the right thing. But other than that,
But as soon as Lieutenant Bo started asking me about it, I let him have the whole thing. Then I asked Captain Smith, I said, do I need to fix this report? I said, because it's inconsistent with the arm I had and everything else. And he said, we're going to see if it goes to SIS first. So I didn't fix the report. But 9 times out of 10, they tell us you have to have something on paper before you leave shift each day. So if it's not on paper, we can't leave. So what we put on paper might not necessarily be accurate. It's just a rough draft.
Why did you not come forward and seek Bower out if that's who you were going to talk to, as opposed to waiting on him to question you about the incident?
I knew I was going to be questioned because all the complaint forms that was going around. So that was a given me. I knew it was wrong when it happened. But I felt as if when I told Sergeant Gardner, hey, this shouldn't happen, I said it under my breath. I didn't want everybody to hear me because, I mean, it's none of their business. It was, well, what I saw is the inmate was non-compliant. That tells me right there you have no interest. You don't want to know. But it should have been a red flag right there. Hey, I said it shouldn't happen. Why shouldn't it happen? And then we got Sergeant Love. Okay, he's fairly new. I don't like a lot of the way he goes about things. And Lieutenant Johnson, he just came on shift. I knew I was going to be questioned eventually, but I just wanted to wait till the right person questioned me. And then when Lieutenant Bo, I've worked with him. He's truthful. He's 100% in everything he does. When he asks me, I let him have it. It's like Captain Smith. I'm comfortable with him, too. Just,
Time is now 2 o'clock. We're going to recess for 15 minutes so I can review some more facts of the case and look at the video a couple more times. I'll release everybody until 2:15. So with that, we'll pause the tape and we'll reconvene at that time. All right, time is now 2:15. We're reconvened. I was finished in looking at the case. I can appreciate the fact that you were truthful when investigators came to you. You know, some people aren't. I even took some time to speak with the sheriff about this one, particularly, and about your case in particular. when you view that video, the video clearly shows that when St. Louis came up, you were looking at the guy as St. Louis took him off your arm, and your statement was inconsistent on that. I mean, you're looking straight at the back of the guy's head when St. Louis takes him and slams him to the ground. The other issue is that while you did tell the truth when asked, you waited until you were asked. The sheriff feels that, doing the right thing would have been to have come forward and not wait on someone to come to you on an incident of this magnitude. So with all that being said, I have no choice but to sustain 7.02 truthfulness, 7.06 conduct unbecoming, and 5.05 use of force reporting. And I will have to move forward with termination. And with that being said, I will close the hearing. I'll close testimony. I'll dismiss the investigators, and then you'll have to do some paperwork. That'll bring this hearing to a close. All right. Today is May 31st, 2012. The time is 2:30. We are gathered in the Sheriff's Conference Room in the Executive Suites for the purpose of a pre-disciplinary hearing in reference to Correctional Officer St. Louis. Present is Officer St. Louis, Investigator Norton, Sergeant Harrison, and myself. Just for the record, I would like to start with you, Mr. St. Louis, if you would just give us your full name and employee number for the record.
Enrique St. Louis, employee number 18988.
Alvin Spencer Norton, employee number 22222.
Dwayne Harrison, employee number 16060.
I'm Joseph Sean Sutherland, employee number 8471. I'm Assistant Chief Deputy. I'll be acting as the hearing officer in this case. Just a few quick things. The way this hearing works in St. Louis, I'll allow them to present the case as it was investigated and as it was presented to the sheriff. Once they're done presenting any evidence that they have, I'll allow you to give testimony on your behalf for anything that you'd like to put in for the record. After that, we'll take a brief recess. I'll consider the facts of the case, and I'll come back with a disciplinary finding. You did receive notification of this hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what day you received that on?
No, I'm not sure.
But it was obviously 24 hours prior to today's
Yes.
hearing. All right. I sent out notice on May 16th. I'll just read that in for the record. This memo is dated May 16th. It is addressed to you. It is from me. It is in reference to this case, and it reads, a hearing will be convened in my office on Thursday, May 31st, 2012 at 14:30 hours for the purpose of reviewing an investigation concerning allegations of misconduct and or violations of rules, regulation, policy, procedure, ordinance, or law. Prior to this hearing, please make an appointment with me to review the case to be presented. Your attendance is compulsory and mandatory. Please advise your supervisors so they may make any necessary adjustments in your duty assignments during your attendance in this hearing. It says it's been revealed to your supervisors that you may have violated the following Clayton County Sheriffs Office rules and regulations and or Clayton County Civil Service rules: 7.02 truthfulness, 7.06 conduct unbecoming an officer, 7.14 employee exercise diligence, 5.03 use of force, and 5.05 use of force reporting. And it says, following is your conduct, action, or failure to act with the above listed rules as documented in SIS case file 2012 IA027. Waiving this hearing was not an option, so if you would just initial down there where it says we're not waiving the hearing, and then sign over there where the employee signature block
Right
is.
on top, sir?
On the bottom where it says no. There you go. And I'll just ask everybody to take a brief oath. If you would, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
St. Louis?
I do.
Is there no?
I do.
Sergeant Harrison? All right. All right. With that being said, if you will, Investigator Norton, go ahead and present the case.
On April 16, 2012, inmate Michael Jamal Ford, LE number 0970583, advised Lieutenant W. Smith several correction officers used excessive force on him on April 13, 2012. Lieutenant Boyle completed an investigation into the incident. The investigation was reassigned to Special Investigation Section for review. On April 13, 2012, Correctional Officer St. Louis Correctional Officer Feemster attempted to lock down inmate Michael Ford for failure to comply with officer orders. Inmate Ford refused to lock down Correctional Officer St. Louis. Correctional Officer Feemster escorted inmate Ford to the ground. Correctional Officer Feemster administered one knee strike to inmate Ford's right shoulder. Correctional Officer St. Louis administered several knee strikes and elbow strikes to the back and neck area of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Feemster notified other officers via the radio he needed assistance with a non-compliant inmate. Correctional Officer Wyatt arrived. Inmate Ford was handcuffed. Clayton County Sheriff's Office use of force. Sergeant A. Love completed a use of force report on April 14, 2012, detailing the events which occurred between inmate Ford and Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster. Sergeant Love documented that inmate Ford was non-compliant, banging on windows and wearing his uniform improperly. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster made contact with inmate Ford, at which time inmate Ford took a combative stance towards the officers. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster used a leg sweep and took inmate Ford to the ground. Inmate Ford continued to resist Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster. Correctional Officer St. Louis administered several knee and elbow strikes to the back and shoulder area of inmate Ford. Correctional Officer Wyatt arrived and assisted with securing inmate Ford with handcuffs. Inmate Ford sustained a minor laceration to his nose. The use of force stated incident occurred on April 14, 2012. However, this incident occurred on April 13, 2012. A copy of the use of force is attached to this case file for review. Jail miscellaneous incident report by Correctional Officer St. Louis. Correctional Officer St. Louis completed a jail miscellaneous report on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer St. Louis stated he made contact with inmate Ford due to him banging on the window with his uniform open. Correctional Officer St. Louis instructed inmate Ford he would lose the remainder of his free time if he failed to wear his uniform properly. Inmate Ford walked towards his cell, turned towards Correctional Officer St. Louis while stating, "I'm not locking down." Correctional Officer St. Louis alerted Correctional Officer Feemster. Correctional Officers St. Louis and Feemster both gave verbal commands for inmate Ford to place his hands behind his back so they could handcuff inmate Ford prior to escorting him out of the section. Inmate Ford to comply with orders, and he clenched his fist. Correctional Officer Feemster secured inmate Ford's left arm. Correctional Officer St. Louis secured inmate Ford's right arm. Inmate Ford turned towards Correctional Officer St. Louis in an aggressive manner. Correctional Officer Feemster notified Central Control of non-compliant inmate. Correctional Officer St. Louis used the leg sweep inmate Ford to the floor. Inmate Ford continued to resist. Correctional Officer St. Louis delivered several elbow strikes to inmate Ford's shoulder blades and several knee strikes to his right side. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Feemster were able to gain control of inmate Ford after Correctional Officer Wyatt arrived to assist. A copy of this incident report is attached to this case file for review. Interviews. On April 26, 2012, Investigator Waits and I conducted an interview with Correctional Officer St. Louis. I asked Correctional Officer St. Louis to explain to me in detail the events that unfolded on April 13, 2012 between himself and inmate Ford. Correctional Officer St. Louis' statements to me were consistent with the written statement he submitted to Lieutenant Bloor. I had Correctional Officer St. Louis read his statement. I advised Correctional Officer St. Louis I was concerned about the events which took place after inmate Ford was secured and was being escorted out of his cell. Correctional Officer St. Louis stated he and Correctional Officer Feemster both were escorting inmate Ford from the cell. Correctional Officer St. Louis stated that once they got to the catwalk area, inmate Ford allowed his legs and body to go limp. Correctional Officer St. Louis stated he then assisted inmate Ford to the ground. I asked Correctional Officer St. Louis if this statement was accurate and truthful, and he replied yes. I asked Correctional Officer St. Louis did he need to complete another statement for accuracy, and he stated no. I then had Correctional Officer St. Louis sign his statement he submitted to Lieutenant Bloor, and I witnessed the statement by signing it. I then informed Correctional Officer St. Louis I had obtained video of the incident. I allowed Correctional Officer St. Louis to view the video. Correctional Officer St. Louis continued to say inmate Ford allowed his body and legs to go limp while being escorted out of the section. I slowed the video down and asked Correctional Officer St. Louis to show me at which point in the video inmate Ford allowed his body to go limp. Correctional Officer St. Louis admitted he lost his temper briefly while escorting inmate Ford out of the section. Correctional Officer St. Louis stated he forced inmate Ford to the ground without provocation. I had Correctional Officer St. Louis complete another written statement which was consistent with the statements he made during our interview. A copy of the interview and written statements is attached to this case file for review. Conclusion. Violation 1. On April 13, 2012, Correctional Officer St. Louis made contact with inmate Ford, Housing Unit 2, after escorting another inmate into the housing unit. Correctional Officer St. Louis instructed inmate 4 to wear his uniform properly or he would lose the remainder of his free time. Inmate 4 did not comply with Correctional Officer St. Louis's order. Correctional Officer St. Louis summoned for Correctional Officer Feemster to assist him with dealing with inmate 4. Correctional Officer St. Louis and Correctional Officer Feemster attempted to handcuff inmate 4. Inmate 4 was then taken to the ground where Correctional Officer St. Louis administered multiple knee and elbow strikes to the back and neck area of inmate 4. Inmate 4 was secured in handcuffs and Correctional Officer Feemster was escorting inmate 4 from the section. Correctional Officer St. Louis then takes control of inmate 4 and forces him to the ground. Correctional Officer St. Louis admitted he lost his temper and lost control of the situation. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer St. Louis did violate Clayton County Sheriffs Office rules and regulations 0503 use of force. Personnel shall not use unnecessary force in the execution of their duties, whether handling prisoners, serving warrants, dealing with the public, otherwise exercising the authority of their position. Personnel must be firm, resolute and energetic in exercising the means necessary to properly perform his duties. 1. Excessive force is any force used in excess of the amount of force reasonably required to establish control over or to prevent or terminate an unlawful act or violence. 2. Reasonable force is the force needed superior to that force used by a subject which will enable the officer to establish control or to prevent or terminate an unlawful act. Violation 2. Correctional Officer St. Louis failed to completely and accurately document all the facts pertaining to the events which occurred between himself and inmate 4 on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer St. Louis forced inmate 4 to the ground while he was being escorted from the housing unit by Correctional Officer Feemster. This was not documented in the jail miscellaneous report submitted by Correctional Officer St. Louis. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer St. Louis did violate Clayton County Sheriff's Office rules and regulations 0505 use of force reporting. When it is necessary to use any amount of force on a subject, a written report will be made given all the facts of the incident. This report shall be forwarded through the reporting employee's chain of command. Upon review of these reports, a copy will be forwarded to the Sheriff, Chief Deputy, and the Special Investigation Section. Violation 3. During the course of this investigation, Correctional Officer St. Louis did willfully depart from the truth on several occasions. Correctional Officer St. Louis submitted a jail miscellaneous report which he willfully omitted several facts concerning the events which took place between himself and inmate 4 on April 13, 2012. Correctional Officer St. Louis submitted a written statement to Lieutenant Board on April 17, 2012 in which he stated inmate 4 allowed his body to go limp while being escorted from the housing unit. Correctional Officer St. Louis made these same statements to me during an internal affairs investigative interview. The video obtained of the incident clearly shows inmate 4 was forced to the ground by Correctional Officer St. Louis, and inmate 4's legs and body did not go limp. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer St. Louis did violate Clayton County Sheriff's Office rules and regulations 07.02 truthfulness. The personnel of the Sheriff's Office shall be truthful at all times, both on and off duty, under oath or otherwise. Anyone who does willfully depart from the truth shall be considered unfit for service and subject to disciplinary action. Violation 4. Correctional Officer St. Louis submitted a written statement to Lieutenant Board during the use of force investigation. The statement submitted contained omitted facts. Correctional Officer St. Louis' statements were not truthful. Correctional Officer St. Louis also willfully omitted facts to me during an interview conducted by investigator Waits of me. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer St. Louis did violate Clayton County Sheriff's Office rules and regulations 07.06 prohibition against conduct of becoming an officer. Conduct of becoming an officer is conduct which the general public may perceive as negative or unprofessional in nature. Conduct of becoming an officer is as follows, but not limited to personnel of the Sheriff's Office who are found to have committed any of the following offenses may be subject to disciplinary actions. 1. Immoral conduct both on and off duty. 2. Lying to a superior or to other employees. 3. Conduct injurious to the public peace and welfare. 4. Having knowledge or participating in or encouraging any kind of wrongdoing, behavior, or actions that could prove to be an embarrassment to the Sheriff's Office. Violation 5. During the course of this investigation, Correctional Officer St. Louis admitted he lost his temper and he lost control of himself when dealing with inmate 4. Therefore, it is sustained. Correctional Officer St. Louis did violate Clayton County Sheriff's Office rules and regulations 07.14. Requirements that employees exercise diligence. Uniformed personnel shall maintain a professional bearing and shall perform their duties in a calm, diligent, and firm manner, acting together to assist and protect each other and maintaining law and order. Personnel shall serve the Sheriff's Office loyally, discreetly, and shall not display cowardice or fail to support their fellow members in performance of their duties. This case is closed as sustained.
Okay. Sergeant Harrison, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
St. Louis, the floor is yours.
Only thing I can say about that, sir, everything was completely right. But at the time when I did the report, during the altercation, I was zoned out. I didn't even know Officer Wyatt was in there. So I did lose my temper on the thing, but I didn't remember. I didn't remember because I thought Officer Feemster and myself escorted him both out. When I seen it, I was like, wow, I didn't remember that. When they showed it to me, I was obviously, you know what I'm saying, he said something and I was upset and I lost my cool.
Okay. All right. Well, the time is 10 till 3. I'd like to take about 15 minutes to review the case and all the facts. If we could, let's reconvene back in here at about 5 after. I'll stop the tape for now and dismiss everybody until 5 minutes after 3. All right, it is now 5 minutes after 3. We'll reconvene back in the Sheriff's Conference Room. You know, Officer St. Louis, in reviewing the case, watching the video, you know, everything that happened, you know, it's a hard job that we have down there. I know I was a watch commander for many years. And everything that transpired up until a certain point was justified and okay. You know, we have to use force to maintain control. But we can't use excessive force when there's no resistance offered. And that's what happened in this case. Somebody got mad. That somebody was you. Without cause or provocation, you slam the guy on the concrete, causing an injury. The other issue is, you know, I know you say that you were mad then, you couldn't remember, but I would have thought or hoped that during the investigation and talks with the investigator, especially after he's asked you, are you sure that that's, you know, the incident, are you sure that's the way it transpired, and giving you an opportunity to try and come forward with it.
I understand, sir, but I don't mean to cut you off, but I really didn't remember, and I didn't want to say something that wasn't in my head. I didn't want to fabricate something and say, you know, I did it and I didn't do it, and I said that. That's when I spoke to the investigator, and I said I didn't even know what he said, but if, you know, that's what it shows. He must have said something that pissed me off.
Clear. Well, with all that being said, I have to sustain 7.02 truthfulness, 7.06 conduct unbecoming, 7.14 employee exercise diligence, 5.03 use of force, and 5.05 use of force reporting. And regardless of the record that you got here, I've got to move forward with what the recommended discipline was in this termination. Okay. So with that being said, I will bring this hearing and this testimony to a close. I'll dismiss the investigators, and I'll need you to stand by for just a few so we can do some paperwork. With that, I close this hearing.